Unusually for us here at Alex on Autos, we are driving a McLaren 570S Spider in this interesting sort of Smurf blue. We don't do too many supercars here at Alex on Autos for a variety of reasons. Obviously, very few people can afford them, and this model starts at $208,800. But today I did have the opportunity to drive this for a while, and I couldn't resist doing a video on it. This review is going to be a little bit shorter than normal because obviously this is a very fast car, it handles very well, and it is fantastically expensive. All the things you expect out of a supercar, and of course, it's a little less practical than something like a BMW 3 Series. But let's dive in and take a look anyway. For a supercar, there are a few features in the McLaren that surprised me a little bit. We have front parking sensors, we have modern LED headlamps with an LED light pipe right inside, and overall the vehicle just feels like a real car. I know that sounds a little odd to say, but a lot of supercars out there don't have the same kind of gadgets and features that you find in other luxury cars. For instance, this one has four-way adjustable lumbar support, and that's not something you find in every supercar. At 178 inches long, the McLaren is neither as short as you might think or as long as you might think. Some supercars end up quite long, and some end up very, very small. We of course have the typical features we expect in a really flashy, expensive performance car, like scissor lift doors right here. We also have some buttons on the side, which is kind of an interesting touch, so you can open the lid with the scissor lift door open, or you can also open this little hatch right back here, which is all you can really do with the engine. There's a lid for the coolant, there's a lid for the oil, and you can sort of glimpse the 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8 under there, but you can't actually see it. Because the McLaren is a mid-engine vehicle, everything after the front seats really is all engine-related componentry and the exhaust system. And that's why we see so many vents right back here on the rear. For instance, the tail lamp modules incorporate this light pipe that wraps around like this, but in the center where you would normally see more tail lamp, that's actually a cooling grate right there. We have large twin exhaust below and a lot of aero treatments going on, and again, well-integrated parking sensors. Under this area of the McLaren lives its engine. It produces 562 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, and it sends power to the rear wheels. According to the EPA, this is good for 19 miles per gallon combined, you know, if a supercar shopper actually cared about fuel economy. It's actually a fairly good fuel economy score, and the reason that's possible is because this is incredibly light. It weighs only 2,895 pounds dry. If you put all the fluids in it, fill the gas tank, etc., all the options, you're right around 3,300 pounds. That's lighter than a Honda Civic. A common complaint about high-performance vehicles is that often more time is spent lightening the vehicle and removing features than trying to make the interior just as comfortable as your average luxury car. And so the McLaren actually surprised me here a little bit because we have multi-way power adjustable driver and front passenger seats with seat memory. Four-way lumbar support is a little bit difficult to find even in large luxury cars, and we actually have it here in a 3,300-pound ultralight. You'll also find nice touches like a power tilt telescopic steering column, power folding mirrors, and a touchscreen infotainment system. Unlike ultralight vehicles like that Alfa Romeo 4C, there are actually some storage cubbies right here in the McLaren. You can stick your phone right there in the door, and there's actually a cup holder. Because the engine's in the back, we find the trunk right up front. And interestingly enough, we have almost the same kind of cargo capacity in here as we find in something like a Lexus LC500. It actually is a little bit more convenient than you might think. There's a little light right there, and of course a 12-volt power outlet. In our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index, this definitely scores higher than a wide variety of vehicles, especially something like the Alfa Romeo 4C. It has a very, very small trunk. Inside we find a mixture of stitched leather and stitched Alcantara. We find leather on the lower portions of the dash and contrasting here on the door panels, and then Alcantara for pretty much everything else you can touch. In the center console, there's a fairly basic touchscreen infotainment system, but we do feature things like satellite audio. We also have app integration and multimedia interfaces. There's also a full-color LCD instrument cluster, and we have shift paddles made out of carbon fiber. As we see in a variety of other supercars, the shift paddles actually toggle back and forth. So if I pull the up shift paddle on the right, the one on the left actually goes sort of in towards the dashboard. The steering wheel is a 3-spoke model, also made of carbon fiber and wrapped in Alcantara and more leather right there in the middle. Obviously, the McLaren is very, very fast out on the road. It stops really, really quickly and handles incredibly well. But like many supercars, it is just a little bit difficult to live with at times because this vehicle has a very firm suspension even when we're in the softest mode. There are a lot of different modes you can play with. We have a number of different buttons down here. We can change the way the steering feels, we can change the way the powertrain behaves, etc. And of course, we have a true manual mode with this 7-speed dual clutch transmission. And of course, no matter what mode you're in, the McLaren is always going to be very, very fast. Supercars are tricky to review. There are other outlets that are going to be better about quoting lap times and track times and 0 to 60 times, etc. In my mind, the supercar decision process is much more of an emotional process than a numbers-driven process or a value-driven process. It's very different than buying the average car. A lot of the decision-making process has to come down to, do you like the look of the car? Do you like the way the McLaren brand presents itself? Do you like the fact that it's a hand-built car versus an assembly line-built car like a Porsche or an Acura NSX? And of course, do you live on glassy, smooth roads like the ones that we're driving on right here? Because this road is perfectly livable. And if this is the only kind of road surface I ever had to drive on, then any supercar would do just fine. But if the road tends to be a little bit rougher around where you live, like where I live, then a lot of supercars tend to fall behind your average performance luxury car, something like a absolutely insane AMG S-Class or an AMG E63, or a BMW M5 or anything along those lines. Now obviously, a performance luxury car like that is not a supercar and does not compete with the McLaren 570S in any real way. And that is of course the trouble with reviewing a supercar. Because cars compete in a few different ways, basically. We have cost. So your low-cost cars, obviously the cheaper you can get the car, it doesn't matter what's in it because you can buy a new car for $10,000. Then we get luxury or performance. If you have the ultimate in performance or the ultimate in luxury, you can command any price you want because you're delivering that kind of performance and that kind of luxury that you expect. The trouble with everything else is value. Value is what happens in the middle, between performance and cost, between luxury and cost. So vehicles like this McLaren 570S Spider are, on the one side, difficult to review, and on the other side, easy to review because it's a supercar, it performs excellently, it handles very well, etc., and value doesn't necessarily come into the equation when you're spending $200,000 on a car. Be sure and let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below, and of course let me know what you think about the McLaren 570S. For 2018, this model starts at $208,000, and if you want to get crazy with options, you certainly can, and you can make your McLaren just about as expensive as you want it to be. As always, I'm Alex Dykes with Alex on Autos, and this has been a 2018 McLaren 570S. Of course, the one without the roof, obviously. Go ahead and find us over at facebook.com/AlexOnAutos so you can see what we're driving right now, and I'll see you next week.